All right, let's dive into one of the weirdest, most intense, and honestly pretty disturbing stories in the Gospels. It's a moment that has had people scratching their heads for centuries, and today we're going to unpack why it happened.
So here's the big question, right? Why would Jesus, the man we know for healing and compassion, just allow this massive, violent destruction of animals? It seems so completely out of character. But as we're about to see, there's actually a pretty profound logic hidden inside all that chaos. So our story kicks off the moment Jesus steps off his boat. He's just crossed the Sea of Galilee, and he had to go through a crazy storm to get to this foreign Gentile land. And the very first thing that greets him is pure horror. I mean, you have to picture the scene here. The desperation is just off the charts. This isn't just someone having a bad day. This is a man who is completely lost to his torment. He's living among the dead, which is a constant reminder of how cursed he feels. He's a total outcast, the community is terrified of him, and he has this insane superhuman strength that just snaps chains. He's wandering the mountains, screaming and bleeding. He is the definition of a hopeless case. And this is where it gets really fascinating. The man sees Jesus from way off, runs, and literally falls down to worship him. But the words that come screaming out of his mouth are pure terror, begging to be left alone. This just perfectly shows the war going on inside him. The man's soul sees its savior, but the darkness possessing him sees its judge. Now, what's so crucial to understand is that Jesus is here on purpose. He didn't just accidentally wash ashore. He crossed a storm-tossed sea to get to this specific region, the Decapolis. This was Gentile territory, a place most observant Jews would never go, and for a really specific reason. It was considered unclean. See, for the Jewish people, God's law in the Old Testament was crystal clear. Pigs were ceremonially unclean. You couldn't eat them. And this wasn't just some dietary suggestion. It was a huge part of their identity, something that set them apart from the pagan nations all around them. And that's the collision course. Jesus steps into a place where the entire economy, their whole livelihood, is built on an industry that directly spits in the face of God's law. So he isn't just confronting one possessed man, he's confronting an entire system that's built on disobedience. So the confrontation begins with a really simple question from Jesus. What is your name? Now, he's not asking because he doesn't know. He's asking so that everyone standing there, and all of us reading this today, can truly grasp the unbelievable scale of the evil this man was living under. And the response is just chilling. It's not a name, it's a military title. Legion. This tells us we're not dealing with just one rogue demon. This is an organized force, a strategic occupation of a human soul. Just let that number sink in for a second. A Roman legion was a massive, formidable military unit. This implies that thousands of demonic entities were living inside and tormenting this one guy. No wonder chains couldn't hold him. He was a war zone in human form. And you gotta remember, a legion wasn't just a mob. It was an organized, disciplined, and brutal occupying force. For the people of that time, living under Roman rule, that single word, legion, brought to mind the terrifying power of their conquerors. It shows us the real nature of this spiritual battle. This man wasn't just oppressed, he had been invaded and totally conquered. But here's the crazy part. Despite their numbers and their terrifying name, this entire army of demons is absolutely petrified of Jesus. They beg him not to send them to the abyss, which is basically a spiritual prison for demonic forces. Their desperation is so huge that they would rather live inside unclean animals than have to face the authority of the Son of God. So, he gives them permission. And this brings us right back to our central question. Why? Why the pigs? Well, the text gives us 3 really profound reasons that unlock the whole meaning of what's happening here. So here's the 3-part answer. First, it made the evil visible. You see, the man's suffering was internal, hidden. By sending the demons into the pigs, their violent, self-destructive nature became graphically obvious as the whole herd just launches itself off a cliff. Second, it was a direct judgment on the town's economy, which was making money off something God had forbidden. And finally, and this is the most important part, it made a powerful statement. The value of one redeemed human soul is infinitely more valuable than 2,000 pigs. It's more valuable than an entire economy. And look at the result. I mean, the contrast is just stunning. The man who was a living nightmare, a terror to everyone, is now just sitting there, calmly, clothed,
completely sane. The power of what just happened is undeniable.
But the town's reaction is the tragic twist in the story. You'd think they'd be celebrating, right? Throwing a parade? But instead, they're afraid. They see the man who's been restored, but they also see their massive economic loss. And they make a choice. They ask Jesus to leave. They chose their pigs over his presence. They chose their comfort over true deliverance.
The story doesn't end there, though. The healed man, he begs to go with Jesus, but Jesus gives him a totally different mission. And this final part of the story, it holds some of the most important lessons for us today. So, what can we take away from all this? Well, first, the spiritual realm is real, but Jesus' authority is absolute. Second, Jesus will cross any storm to rescue the one who is lost. Third, real freedom can be messy, it can be disruptive, and it might cost us things we've gotten comfortable with. And just like the townspeople, we have to decide if we value our pigs more than his presence. And finally, Jesus sent the man back home, not as some great theologian, but as a witness. His simple story, I was lost and now I'm found, had the power to change his entire region.
And that really leaves us with a final thought. The town mourned the loss of their pigs, but they failed to see that the man had been paying a much, much higher price all along. So the question for us is, what are the pigs in our own lives? You know, the comforts, the systems, the profits that we might be choosing over true freedom. And what is that freedom really worth to you?